Hi, my name is Anne Sermons Gillis, and I'm Vice President of the Theosophical Order of Service. And today I'm really glad to have with me a Theosophical Society member. Welcome to Carolee Egan. Sit back and enjoy the journey. Welcome, Carolee.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, good. Just tell us where did this all begin? Where were you born?
I was born in New Brunswick, New Jersey, in March 30th, 1938. So I am a cardinal sign, an Aries, and my life really portrays that sign.
Oh, okay. Well, where
Uh,
do you live now?
I live in Oakton, Virginia, just outside Washington, D.C., and I've lived here for 45 years.
Okay. Well, so you're still on the East Coast.
I am.
Were you raised in any kind of religion or with any kind of spiritual beliefs?
No, I was not, but I lived in a small village outside of Tampa, Florida. I grew up in outside of Tampa, Florida. My parents moved there um, after World War II, and we moved to open a restaurant, and they took me with them. They left my sister in New Jersey because she was only two, and so the three of us departed, and it was a whole different thing for me because I had been in a extended family with my grandmother and aunts and uncles, and we moved down to Tampa, and they opened a restaurant, and it was on the shore of a lake. And as a child, I had a lot of mystical experiences.
And,
And
and how old were you when you moved there? Did you may have 7? Okay.
And my parents, you know, parents were different then because we're talking in 1945. And they just expected you to be grown up. You didn't have parents that pampered you or put you to bed or tucked you in, or you were on your own. And so I learned at a very early age to take care of myself and to be self-sufficient. And that's been my life, is just being self-sufficient and knowing how to do that. Um, but early on, I used to retreat and go by myself down and sit by the lake. And I was always um, a quiet child. Um, and when other kids were reading Nancy Drew mysteries, I was reading the Silver Chalice. I was always into the mystical and religion, and my parents had no religion. They never went to church. Nobody ever spoke about God, or it was not that they didn't believe in God, it was just not part of our life. And but in this little village, the only thing there were for children to do was to go to church. And so there was a Baptist church and there was a Pentecostal church. And I joined both, and I was baptized in both. And I just, that, it just, that was what I needed to do. I needed to always be thinking about God somehow. And I decided that neither one of those fit me. So at 13, I converted to Catholicism. And I had had some mystical experiences when I was at the lake, and I believe that I saw the Virgin in the sky, and I had a real close relationship with Mary. And so I cleaved to the Catholic Church, and um, I loved it. And I went to Catholic school, and high school. And I got married very young. I got married at 18. I had 4 children by the time I was 23 and a half.
Wow.
So it was quite a journey. And my husband went to work for my father in the restaurant. And they wanted me to take over the restaurant, and I refused. And a real rift happened in the family. And we decided to move. My husband wanted to move, and he chose Las Vegas. And so off I went with 4 small children to live in Las Vegas with no help. And I always wondered, what am I doing in this barren place? Because in 1960, when we moved there, this was a barren place. This was not the Vegas you know today. It was all desert. And I just hated it because came from the tropics. Here I was raised on the shore of a lake, and I ended up in the desert. And I just never knew I was there, why I was there, until I met Nadine Hunter, who was a Theosophist. And my kids were all in school, and I was president of the PTA. And I walked by her house every day, and I began talking to her. And one day she was cooking in the kitchen, and I sat in her little sitting room, and on the table was a book, something about Masters of the Far East. And it looked interesting to me. And I said, can I read this book? And she said, no, you cannot. And I just did not know what to do with that. I mean, and I'm saying, well, why? She said, because it will change your life. And I don't think it's a time in your life for your life to be changed. You have your kids in school, and your life will change if you read that book. So I kept after her, and after several weeks, she relented. And she allowed me to read the book. And it was the beginning, and it was the beginning and the end. It was the beginning of my journey, and it was the end of my life as it was.
Wow. Was that The Life and Teachings of the Far East Masters by Baird?
I think so. And so I got very involved, and I read 167 books in 6 months. And she and I had Jean Tappendorf come from headquarters and give a 3-day talk. 3 days, one on reincarnation, one on karma, and I don't remember what the 3rd lecture was. And we formed a lodge in Las Vegas. And we were able, because we had all these people come to the presentations, to start with 12 members. And so it was very exciting for me. And everybody disowned me because of it. My parents, my husband, they had me crazy. I was crazy. This was in 1965. And it just was not, at that time, you couldn't even get the name of a Theosophist from anyone. You had to write to the society, and the society would contact whoever it was. You couldn't know that they were a Theosophist. So it was a different time. And I loved Theosophy, and my main teachers and the teachers that I loved the best were Clara Codd and Janara Jadaska. And and Leadbeater. And it was strange. Yesterday, I was looking for books that meant a lot to me, and I picked up two books that I have had since 1971. One of them cost me $1.75. The other was $3.25. And they're titled The Ageless Wisdom of Life by Clara Codd and Man, Visible and Invisible by Leadbeater. And the reason that this is significant for me is that I didn't remember that I had taken those books with me. When I had some real challenges later on in life, and I had to leave everything behind, and somehow I didn't leave these books. I brought them with me because they have the date and everything in them. So I don't even remember packing them, but I have them. So they had to get here somehow. My favorite book of all time is The Science of the Sacraments by Leadbeater.
Yeah, that's a big book.
That's a big book, but that, you know, whereas Blavatsky was really speaking the Vedas, Leadbeater was still speaking Christianity. And I was Christian. And so I hearkened to the things that he was saying, and I still had a love of the Mass, though I no longer was part of the Catholic Church, because I left in 1967, got a divorce with my 4 kids.
Oh my, how old were your kids when you got divorced?
The oldest one was 10 and a half, and the youngest one was 6.
Okay.
And
did you were you in Las Vegas at this point?
I was in Las Vegas, and I stayed there for 3 years until 1970. And then I remarried, and it was a disastrous marriage. But I did remarry, and I moved to Houston. And in Houston, I became very involved with the Unity Church because it was the only thing that I knew at the time that had metaphysics to it.
Was this the one on Richmond Avenue that it would have been the pyramid at that time, or was it another one?
The pyramid wasn't there. I helped to design the pyramid.
Oh wow.
So I was there. Reverend John Rankin was there, and he was a wonderful teacher. And that was a time when pyramid energy and the study with Pat Flanagan was really something that people were talking about. And so I decided that that was something I wanted to look into. And I set up something with the University of Houston to do experiments with garbage with the pyramid, because the pyramid nothing in the pyramid deteriorates, it like mummifies. So we were doing experiments with that, and then started the newspaper called the Cosmic Echo. And John Rankin from Unity, we got together because there were 44 metaphysical esoteric groups in Houston at the time on Westheimer Avenue. And but they were all warring. I mean, they were just fighting with each other, and which one wanted to be on the cover of my publication, etc. And so John and I formed a group called it was about inner awareness. It was a group about inner awareness, and he became the president of that group, so that we could each give our thoughts about different teachings, different religions, so that there would be a oneness. Because my main thing with Theosophy was that I had never been a person who had any prejudice in my entire life. And oneness was the only thing that made sense to me. And so that was what I first hooked onto was the oneness of Theosophy, because that was a time when there was such racial division as there is now, but there were all kinds of divisions. And so I was impressed that there was something out here where that did not exist. And so I became involved in that first. And then I started with the comparison of religions and science, and got involved with everything, noetic science and Edgar Cayce and every kind of learning that was going on then that was coming to the fore. And at the same time, being involved in Theosophy and Jungian psychology and just all of it. It was like I was just bombarded with everything. And so
Were you going into the lodge meetings in
no,
Houston? That the lodge there was founded in, I think it was in eight, let's see, 2013. So it was 1913 when the lodge was formed there.
no, I did
13
not.
was a 100-year anniversary, yeah.
I just actually, at that time, I just read. I did not do anything else. There weren't TV programs or anything. There was just, all I did was read, and I did a lot of unity. And I don't think that I was not actively involved in a lodge at that time. But I did everything that the three objects state. One of them is the development of your the powers latent in man.
Right.
And I did everything. I did est. I did
What year did you do est?
In the early 70s.
Oh, wow. That's great. I didn't think it started until the late 70s, but maybe
Well, I
I'm
think
wrong.
it was early 70s that I was involved uh, with a group. And I also was involved with Scientology. So I touched on everything, but maybe it was later when I did S, but I did Silva Mind Control. I did S. I did loving relationships training. I did, whatever it was out there, I was studying it. And then
I did all those. I've done all those. Yeah, loving relationships training with Sandra Ray
yeah,
yeah,
and so I did
and
it.
est.
Did you do
Silva. I did Silva in 78. Silva Mind Control.
I did Silva before 78.
Yeah,
So maybe
it had been
I did
it had been
earlier.
around. Yeah, it had been around.
Mhm. And so it seemed like I was just on this journey, and I was just growing and learning about myself and becoming more intuitive and more self-assured. And, just I was just expanding at a rapid rate. And um, things they would just unfold for me. It just like they would just come into my path. And then I decided I'd do rebirthing, and I became a rebirther. And then I studied Qigong healing, and then I studied with Brian Weiss, and then I studied with Michael Newton. And so I was on all this trajectory over here while I was still living Theosophy. And then I got involved in Theosophy. As far as taking up studying again. Because after I left Las Vegas, I didn't have Nadine anymore, or the lodge, or the group. And just raising 4 children moving to a new area and getting involved, it took all the energy I had.
Absolutely.
So I think that at different times, one of your questions was, what part of Theosophy, what part is it that resonates with you? At different times, different things have. First, it was the oneness of everything. And then it was world religions. And it was the study of comparative religion, science, and then it became the self-awareness part. And at each time, I've been led into something else to develop a different one of my bodies, so that I became very intuitive. I'm very intuitive. I'm extremely creative. And I have owned like 3 businesses.
Well, tell us about what was your career, what were your businesses after you raised your children, or maybe while
Uh,
you were raising them?
raised my children. Uh, I actually was, I had a business machine supply company in Texas, and I traveled 5 states with a company and sold business supplies. And so after that, then I formed the business, and then I sold that business and decided that I didn't want to be in Texas anymore. And I moved east to Virginia. And here I managed temporary help firms. And then in 1998, I had a massive heart attack, and I had a bypass surgery at 60. And they told me I could never do my business development and management again because it was too stressful. And I had done I had done interior design early on. I had taken classes wherever I was. I took classes in design. And so I fell back on my design background, and I went to New York School of Design and brought myself up to date in design, and spent 30 years in that field with a very successful field for me, very successful business for me. So I was not one of those people that stayed in one place and did one thing. I was adventuresome in a different way. But I just went where spirit led me. And it led me, back to studying deeply, studying Theosophy. I went to a convention in Atlanta. Then I went up to Wheaton to the convention. I went to Indralaya because I lived for 2 years in Seattle. And my daughter lived there, and I got a job in managing a home health agency. And I lived there for 2 years. And so I spent time at Indralaya. Then my granddaughter went to Santa Barbara. So I spent time in Crotona. So, and I was in Ojai when Krishnamurti was there. And so Krishnamurti was a living teacher to me. And so,
Do you have any memories or stories about Krishnamurti?
I just remember him under a tree talking. You couldn't get near him. Everybody just sat on the lawn around him, and he was such a beautiful being. But you didn't form a relationship of any kind with him. He was aloof. And but I just loved his teachings. So I have never been one to want a singular guru, and I really don't think Blavatsky wanted that either, because she always told us to keep knowing until we find the truth for ourselves. And so my truth is not everybody's truth. There is just a deeper part of me that doesn't always resonate with everyone. I hear different things. I mean, I studied Sri Ramana Maharshi and Nisargadatta, and I just think all of them have so much to say and so much to add, that I study Theosophy on a weekly basis, but that's not all I study. So I think that's how Madame Blavatsky wanted it.
Well, she talked about studying, didn't she?
Yeah, she did.
And talked about, religion and philosophy and psychology and probably the arts, just every aspect of human consciousness that we could study. And so I
And
think you're
I
right.
think you're a student like that too, aren't you, Anne?
Absolutely. The
Mm.
Native Americans have a name that they call it a twisted hair. And that is you take a little bit from one religion and you put it into that braid, and then you put another one from another religion, you put it in that braid, and you're making your own braid out of your own thing. I always called it the Ann path. I'm saying I walk the Ann path, you walk the Carolee path, because
Right.
I took so many traditions. I'm just really astounded at how similar our journeys have been.
Well, I told you when I met you that I knew you, and I
Yeah.
do know you. I do know you. And I don't know how I know you, but I know you.
The
Uh,
soul, what is it? The soul, Jane Robertson, her oversoul. Maybe we're in the same oversoul.
right, whatever.
Soul.
But I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
I thought maybe it was because we had both lived in Houston, but then I found out we weren't there at the same time.
Right. Yeah.
And then you talked and you said you had done silver mind control, and I said, "Oh, I've done silver mind control
And unity,
and unity and the whole." It just kind of
similar, very similar. I did the same thing you did. I explored many, many disciplines, and I wasn't directly in theosophy, but I did have Leadbeater's book, and I had knew about therapeutic touch, and it sounds very similar to the way you went into it.
well, but I don't know what I would have done if I hadn't had it, because the thing that Theosophy has done for me more than anything, it is it has really let me know that I am more than this body, and that I have the strength within me, and I have this higher self that knows everything. And I mean, I know that that's not something I believe, and so I think that knowledge can get you anywhere. I've had challenges that other people couldn't face. I mean, I had four children. My son, my oldest son, Bill, he taught some classes at Unity. He was a poet and an artist, and he was a Theosophist. And I wouldn't say he didn't join a society, but he always read my books. And he would say he was part of the White Lodges, he'd say, you know, and he died. Both of my boys died from AIDS. They both were gay, and one died in 1987, and one died in 1991. And if I hadn't had the belief and the knowing that they were forever, I would never have survived that. So Theosophy has more to offer than just study, is all I'm saying.
Yes.
Um, And
Absolutely.
I heard Michael Gomes say that if what you're doing with Theosophy is just learning about from studies, learning things, that's really not all that Theosophy is about. I mean, there are such brilliant, brilliant people. And I sit in the lodge meetings and I listen to these PhDs and these people with their masters and their doctorates. And I just go, what am I doing here? Because I don't have that kind of education. I have the depth of soul, but I don't have the depth of education behind me.
That's
And
good. You didn't have all that much to forget.
that's right. That's right. So I guess what I'm saying to you is Theosophy is for everyone. And it can make such a difference in your life.
Yes. But I want to say that one of the cornerstones of Theosophy is really service. And Blavatsky said that Theosophy is altruism, it is service. So could you just give us what your impression of service is, and maybe if you have participated in any service projects over the years?
I haven't participated with the TOS, although I did speak to them when I went to Wheaton. But really, my service has mostly been through Unity because I've been involved with this church 45 years, and it's been mainly an educational process. 2 years ago, I formed a group at this Unity church here called Senior Sages. So I started a senior program because there was not one at the church, but it was a different kind of a senior program. It met every Wednesday and it was an educational program. And I started with teaching them about their bodies, their energy bodies, and then the chakras, and just teaching them who they were, not more than this body. And then we had healing sessions afterwards, therapeutic touch and Reiki. And so they could get to see and feel the energy that they were. So it was an educational process to show them that who they really were. And I just gave that program up last month because I'm not able to do that anymore. Um, I was able to turn it over to someone, so I kept it going for 2 years, and now it's continuing. And so it has always seemed that mine has been, whether it was in the newspaper or the radio show I had in Houston, or it didn't seem to matter. I never wanted to be a practitioner. I mean, I learned the healing, but I did not want to be a practitioner. I wanted to learn about it, but I didn't want to do it. Not as a means to make income. I would, if I went to a hospital, I would use my healing without anyone knowing that I was using my healing ability. So I think my whole life has been service, Anne. I don't think I step out this door anytime, any day when I'm not in service to whoever is here. That's my life. So
That's true to Theosophy, and that is, it's not just about me, 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 me.
no, no, I mean it really is. I've been blessed with wonderful friends, long-term relationships, and I care for people, and I'm there for people. But that's my form of service. I don't do the big things. So
So you go to the DC Lodge via Zoom, right?
I do.
You don't have a
And
local lodge.
they do have a local meeting once a month, but I am not able to go anymore. Um, I'm in hospice now, and so I have to stay close to home and close to the oxygen. But I know people from the lodge because I go every year. They have a meeting. There's one next week. So we will go to the business meeting and the potluck.
Mhm.
So I know a lot of the people, and I know and I knew Rosie Ulix since I saw her at convention, I don't know, 8, 10 years ago. So um, we're not a tight-knit group, but we know each other.
So you've been to the national conventions
Yes, I've been to the national conventions.
in the Mid-South
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Federation meetings and
I have not. I went to the one in Atlanta, and I don't know, Gene Houston was there at the time. So I don't know what year that was. I can't, I have a very good memory, but some things I don't remember years.
right, well,
I get mixed up in dates. I'm 87 and a half years old, so I do get that confused a little bit.
yeah, yeah, I can understand that for sure. So you talked about the two theosophical books, and I believe you said Claire Codd is one of your favorite authors in Theosophy, and Leadbeater. Are there any specific books other than the couple that you mentioned for Theosophy that you like or that influenced you?
Um,
I guess if you read 167 books, you
I
don't remember what they were.
no, but I mean, I think that I'm a little bit sad that some of the authors that I read in the beginning are not front and center anymore. Because I really, really loved reading Janara Jadasa. I really loved his books, and he wrote one book on Christianity, and I don't know the name of it, that it was just absolutely wonderful. And, you know, Leadbeater, they spoke simply, more simply, that even I could get that. And some of them don't.
Yes, I know. If you've
Um,
ever read Esoteric Buddhism by A.P. Sennett,
yes, yes.
that
Oh
was
my
so
God.
convoluted.
I mean, it's just incredible. But I really liked Clara Codd's very, very readable. And all of her books. And I think Leadbeater is too. I like Besant, some of it, but not all of it. So I just think you just got to keep going until you find, and everything has something to offer. Every author has a different take that may be the same teaching, but they're looking at it with just a slightly different lens. I think, anyway.
Well, I'll put in a little plug for the Virtual Learning Center. I know that you attended, I don't know how many of those you've attended. Did you attend more than one of the virtual?
Of what you were doing.
Well, no, I mean, there were 4 or 5 classes going on at the same time. Was this one on the Vedas? Was that the only one you attended?
Well, I did the introductory twice. Did the
Okay.
introductory theosophy twice.
Okay. So would you
I
recommend
read,
people going to the Virtual Learning Center? I'm giving a little ad
yes,
here.
yes. I would definitely, as a matter of fact, we had a class last night with introductory theosophy too, and it was very good. And it's new this, you know, um, and Barbara and Juliana, they just have put this together this year. And they were talking about the virtual learning center and what's happening and how that is going to be really something special. And I mean, with making it more front and center. And so I'm going to look into that too.
Well, Theosophy has become so much more accessible over the past, say, 10 years than it was before. We've just had such a booming of the internet. And I know that we were, of course, we were on the internet, but I mean, with the YouTube channel and just so many different things, Zoom and so forth, we are really out there now.
Well, you're not only out there, but it's very, very organized, very well done.
It is.
Someone else I haven't spoken about is William Meader. He is, William Meader.
Yes.
He's a great esoteric teacher, and I enjoy his, and I get them through the Theosophical Society.
And of course, we've had him I think he was at the Summer National Convention
Right.
last year, 2024, speaking as a keynote speaker.
And when I was at the convention, Eben Alexander was there. That was the last convention I was at.
Yeah.
And Dean Radin. And I actually knew the astronaut who formed Noetic Science.
Edgar Mitchell.
Edgar Mitchell. I actually knew him, interviewed him when I had the newspaper, because he was working with a healer at that time and studying at Stanford. And so he was very, very much into the healing arts and sponsoring people and studying them. So when he started Noetic Science, I was one of the people that supported that. So I just have my fingers in everything.
Well, tell me about your radio show. You interviewed people. What was the name of your radio show, and who did you?
It was Cosmic Communicate.
Okay.
Was the name of it, and it was on that station they bombed out. The ones in Houston where
KPFT.
Yes.
KPFT. Yes.
So, but that was 1971. So that's 50, however many years ago.
Right. 54 years ago. Yeah.
And so, that's the kind of service I've done.
And can you remember? I mean, so you interviewed mostly.
I interviewed metaphysical teachers in Houston.
Okay.
The people who did past life regression, the people who did handwriting analysis, the astrologers, the people from the Young Society. It was all down there on Westheimer Avenue, and I was linked through the Phoenix bookstore at that time. There was a bookstore. And we just had great speakers who were all part of that community with 44. There were 44 metaphysical esoteric organizations in Houston at that time.
Wow.
So you had, all kinds of things, psychics as well. I mean, there was even a point when I got into an argument with Theosophy when I first got involved, and I was so enamored with what was going on that I dabbled in spiritualism. And Nadine Hunter, who was working with me at the lodge, said, you're not developed enough to do that. That's too dangerous for you. And of course, I didn't believe it, okay, until I saw things happen in the organization the church that I was going to, the spiritualist church, that I saw people really kind of go off the deep end. And then I realized Theosophy was right. And I had to go back and say, I was wrong. Because at that time, it was just like a candy store, I mean, it was like there was so much. I came from such a repressed situation because my husband was Cuban and he was a devout Catholic. And anything that veered from going to Mass on Sunday and saying the rosary every day was devil's work. And when I divorced him, he just kind of like he turned everything against me as far as the fact that I was a Theosophist. And he actually tried to take my children from me because I believed in reincarnation. So you see, I come from a totally different place than a lot of people who study this. Mine was really a whole living experience. And Theosophy saved my life and saved me. So my gratitude for what I've learned and for what Blavatsky and the masters brought forth is just unending. I'm just a devout Theosophist.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So I'm wondering, in closing, is there anything that we didn't talk about that maybe you wanted to mention, or any
Yeah,
last
we
words?
really didn't talk about my practice,
Yes,
about
that would
the
be a good
fact
practice.
that I actually use self-inquiry for my meditation, that I use Sri Ramana's process for meditation. That works best for me. Only, well, I don't say, who am I say, who's thinking that thought? And I meditate regularly, but I find that as I've aged and as that it is no longer like a set aside time. It's like I can be in meditation all the time without sitting down to do it. It's I don't have the monkey mind anymore, is what I'm saying. That's gone. And I don't know where it went, and I don't know how it happened, but I can just be in silence and with no thought for unlimited amount of time. Not in prayer, not in anything, just silence. So what that is, I don't even question that. It's just something that I think is, I don't know. I don't have a name for it.
But it sounds like you're sitting on the edge of non-duality, Advaita.
Well, I do study a little bit with Ed Moskowitz because he does that, and so Nisgaradata is Advaita, and I study that as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Just a little bit of everything. I'm like a buffet out here. A little bit of everything.
Yay, yes. Well, I want to thank you so much for being with us today, and look forward to seeing you in the future.
Okay, thank you, Anne.